Hey guys, it's Loon here, and we've all been playing the Star Wars Battlefront beta. I've been trying to think of ways that I can create content that won't be repetitive and irritating for you. And one of those, we obviously want to sort of discuss about the game, and you know, my views tend to be a little different than maybe other producers, and maybe a little bit more frank than some people. And the thing is like when it's just me speaking like this, maybe I think people don't necessarily agree with that fact. So rather than that, what I've done is my regular squad that you guys know that I play with. So we've got Trigger here, we've got Flame Fang, we've also got Fuse, and then of course myself. So there's four of us. We've been playing Battlefront, you know, on and off. Some of the guys have been playing a little bit more than me, and we thought that we'd just have a little discuss here about some of the elements in the game, the things that we like, things we don't like. And I think by having a couple of us here, it's going to create a more balanced perspective than necessarily just me saying I like this, I don't like this, and it kind of creates that kind of back and forth, and you guys can see a more kind of rounded opinion overall. And it also helps that it's not like people that have played individually, so it's not like I'm getting together with other YouTubers and saying like, hey, what's your experience? I'm actually talking like now with my squad after we have had sessions where we play as a four-man team together, and I think that's a little better than having sort of 4 or 5 people's individual experiences. So I'm going to ask Flame first of all. Flame, what's your opinion about Battlefront? Because Flame Fang is basically a massive fan of the previous Battlefront series, probably more so I think than any of us. So I'm kind of curious to know what you sort of think, Flame, or maybe just pick out, like, I don't know, highlight some things that you think are really important or really bad or whatever, I don't know.
Sure. So my opinion coming into this really, especially at first, was that this isn't the game I wanted. It's definitely the only things it has in common with the actual previous Battlefront games are really the setting, the genre, and like third-person mode. That's basically it. And so when I was looking for a sequel to the previous games, I know people are going to say, oh, it's a reboot, but come on, it's got the same name on it. I was looking for something that was a little bit more tactical and a little bit more like the original series. I don't know how many people have played that, but it had a lot more in it than this game does. That said, I do feel as if it's not a bad game. I feel like there were a lot of decisions that went into making it that were generally well made and they were innovative. You know, you can say yes, it's got gameplay that's very similar to a lot of other shooters. It's true, you shoot guns at people, but in a lot of other respects, I think they sort of managed to separate it fairly effectively. Since that's clearly what they decided to do from the previous games, they made a very clean break, which is, you know, if you're going to make the break, you may as well make it clean, I suppose. So in that respect, it's good. Is it something I'm going to buy straight up, you know, on release? Probably not, just because we don't know whether the game's going to last. And there's other games I can play. It's not as if this is the only shooter out there.
Yeah, it's true. But then, I mean, I don't know whether that's going to be something that's actually going to put people off this whole sort of longevity of the game. I mean, I was talking to Wintergore a minute ago, and after we played a couple of rounds, I was just Skyping him, and I said that this game, it feels like it's kind of like a bit of a flash in the pan, but is there anything wrong with that? Would that put you off from playing it? Because, like, you know, if you think about that phrase from Blade Runner when he says, like, the light which burns twice as bright burns twice as fast, or half as long, and it's like, yeah, so maybe the game will not last for a massive amount of time, but maybe it'll be in that time really, really fun to play. And I guess something that goes along with that is there's like a lot of games coming out now. I don't know if you guys feel this, but it feels to me like so many games come out now all the time. It's just like one after another, and I think a lot of people don't like that. Because they feel like they feel like the people. Yeah, you know what I mean, like on Steam, like when we discussed, like Flame just said right now, he's like, there's a lot of other games you could play. I feel like right now there's more games than I ever had that I could play. But I mean, I guess it's difficult for people, you see, because here's the thing, right? People don't want to buy a lot of games, because there's a lot of people don't have a great amount of money to just splash out on every new game.
Just want to kind of invest in one thing, get good at it, and everything like that.
Well, it's also the way it used to be. I mean, if you look at the original Battlefront and Battlefront 2, I mean, I was playing Battlefront 2 for years after the first one came out, or the second one came out.
There's still some games that are like that. You look at like Company Heroes. We'd had this discussion the other day, didn't we? We took like Company Heroes, and that game is still going on now. How long has it been? What is it, 10 years?
Since the original? Yeah, it came out like 2006, I think.
Yeah, and that franchise is still rolling on, and Company Heroes 2 has been going on for quite a few years now. So there are some games still out there that people invest in and really go through with. But I think, like, the fact that the game will be fun, but then the longevity is like a worrying question mark for some people, because I gotta say, like, just from playing you know, the beta so far, I feel kind of like, you know, it's getting quite repetitive already. And although there's going to be some other little bits and pieces in there, it's all just like little trinkets and other tools, and nothing that I see will massively alter the gameplay, right? I mean, Fuse, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the gameplay overall is going to be very similar across every game mode. And I think me and Flame have been talking, you know, we played quite a lot over the weekend, and something or at least I think, is it's not going to be a game where, you know, we say, let's play 4 hours of Battlefront. It's going to be like, okay, I want to pass half an hour. And I think that, for me, the fact that I can jump in for half an hour and leave it and not be like, well, fuck, I wish I had done this, that, and the other, means that it could last a bit longer than what it otherwise would, had it been Battlefield Hardline, let's say.
Well, why is that, though? Why do you
I guess I think Fuse is trying to say, like, it might feel like one of those games that you can play like half brain dead and still have some fun, if that makes any sense.
Exactly. Coming home like absolutely wrecked and
because,
be like, stumble to your computer and be like,
look at you, you went like 22 and 2. You weren't really concentrating, were you? You were just
running around,
blasting a load of stormtroopers in the face.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't have some grand plan. Like, I just happened to like run into people at the same time, you know, and it's like my pistol ruined them because they had the slower weapon, you know. But like, yeah, I mean, there is something to say for that. I mean, like, here's an example. You know, very often when it comes up for my armor nights, and I'm pretty sure that sometimes when I'm like, hey guys, anybody want to play armor? And you're like, do I want to commit to like 3 or 4 hours of gameplay here? Because you know that's what it's going to be. You can't play armor for like 5 minutes. You've got to commit like to a couple of hours. That's why it's very difficult to kind of jump into armor and play like a little bit. You've got to really have like a couple of hours to set aside to play, right? Whereas with this, you can throw in the mix. There's actually very few games that you can do that with, you know, where you can just kind of like hop in, have a really excellent experience, and then just drop it, and it doesn't really. Do you know what I mean? There's not that many that I can think of.
Maybe that's why this game might do at least better than Hardline, because Hardline's meant to be really arcadey in the same fashion that this game is, but
also Hardline's meant to have like a good longevity, and they kind of screwed that.
You still have to have your head screwed on to like do well in Hardline. So,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
that's the thing with Battlefield. It's like if you lose a game, you think, well, now I want to play again and do better and win. Whereas this, it's like, if I lose, well, I lost, whatever.
But do you? But in saying that, are you saying that people are not going to really care about what they're doing in the game?
I think they will. I just don't think it matters as much.
They'll care, but it's not as switched on.
Not as much weight to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing terrible in some of those games, but I was still actually enjoying myself. It could be because it's new, you know. It's.
I think you've got to, you have to add a massive caveat to that, because every time this happens, and I'm so wary of it now as a YouTube producer, because it's like, when I'm talking about a game, and especially if you haven't had a great significant amount of time to play with it, you've got to be so careful about saying like, oh, it was the best, you know, which is why, like I said on my video before after EGX, I was like, well, I was surprised, I did enjoy it, but really need to spend more time with the game. And it's kind of like that with this. It's like, yeah, right now, like, how many games in total have you played, Flame? Have you got a vague idea of how many rounds? Like, have a guess.
I know how long I've played, because there's a stats thing under the profile in the game.
Yeah.
I played, as of when we started playing today, I played about 8 hours.
8 hours, okay. So, you know, I wouldn't say that 8 hours is enough in terms of like, because probably like, let's say 50, let's just guess like 50% of those were win, 50% were loss. And it's like, of those rounds, maybe most of the time, even if it was a loss, you might have been doing fine, you might have had a few that were bad. And so it's kind of like, of the rounds where you're doing bad, and you say like, oh, you're not too fussed, it didn't feel that painful, or it didn't feel that frustrating. But I would say probably a large part of that, like you say, is the kind of novelty factor, the fact that you're still looking around at things and going like, oh, this is cool, you know. And it's like, so you don't care that much really about losing, because you've still had other things there to sort of excite your senses, you know. But then once those things become, it's like, for example, in Battlefield 4, the skyscraper coming down. I mean, for many people, like, they really didn't give a shit whether or not they were winning the round. So long as they saw that, they were like, oh, that's it, I got the best out of my round. I was happy, because it was so cool to see. But then after it got repetitive for like the 50th time, suddenly how you were doing in that round does matter. And if you're being like pinned into the wall every single time, you're going to be like, oh god. So, you know, it matters. But anyway, I mean, that's kind of by the by. We always have those kind of rounds which are like good or bad, I guess. But Weapon
I'm
balance.
scared
Yeah,
about,
no, go on, Trigger. Yeah, go on.
Scared about like even quicker than, well, this doesn't really happen in Battlefield to be honest, but I'm scared that like, you know, everyone's going to just use the same gun after the same like
Fall into the
2
same
weeks.
rhythms.
Look, do we know like how many weapons are going to be in the game? How many blasters? Or
It's not that many. Like I haven't got it in front of me, but I remember seeing a list and it wasn't that long, like 8 to 10, something. I don't know. I don't remember seeing it being excessively long because I don't think they have that many weapons to throw in there. Although I remember saying that on Twitter something, and then loads of Star Wars people were like, "No, look, there's a gigantic list." Yeah, it's like, yeah, okay, but realistically, how many people? So from what I've seen, there's not massive lists. I don't think it's nothing. It's not gonna be like anything like Battlefield 4 or anything like that at all. But then again, I would just like to point out Battlefield 1943, incredibly fun game that I played tons of. I would actually use that maybe as a kind of counter example with this game in terms of like enjoyment, because I think everyone's very concerned that like compared to like Battlefield 4. I did it again. Oh my god, I hate myself. Seriously, I've got to have like something where I pinch myself to stop doing that. In Battlefield 4, obviously it's this very expansive, large thing, and I think many people are comparing this game to that. Whether or not it should be is irrelevant. People are obviously going to compare the two. They're both made by DICE, they kind of follow on, so it's natural that people compare the two things there. But they're not really comparable, and I think it's a more accurate comparison to put against like Battlefield 1943 versus this, because they have the same level in terms of simplicity. And you know, Battlefield 1943 didn't have tons and tons and tons of content. It was fairly straightforward in the content that it did have. Few maps, very set loadouts, so your characters in there were basically an assault guy, an engineer guy, and a sniper, I seem to remember. Vehicles fairly limited. You had like jeeps, tanks, and some aircraft, and that was about it. It's fairly comparable to this game, but that game was incredibly fun. And I think I've said this before, that the simplicity factor can actually be a benefit, because the fact that there is so little in terms of the other detail there, and that's not said in like a negative tone at all, but the fact that there's so little of that there means that people do end up focusing on what else can I be doing right now, and they don't think over too much about loadouts and stuff like this. I mean, so something that we all said was we were concerned that people would just basically build the best loadout. I mean, already, like, just from playing a little bit, I have figured out a loadout that I'm very happy with, works for me, works in a style that I want to play with. And after you've got that loadout and it's working for you, you think, well, why should I really bother to mess around with this and change it if I'm doing really good already? And I think we all kind of said that as a negative. But like I say, in 1943, because you didn't have to really worry about that and it was all set for you, you were just like, well, I'm done with this, so let's just get in the game. So maybe that's going to be like that, you know, maybe people won't fuss about all these little bits and pieces left and right, and they'll just get in the mix. And, you know, what I mean is, when you think in Battlefield 4, maybe people, I mean, I've had it sometimes where I'm not having the best round, and I will, like, tweak my loadout. Maybe you should just, like, get in the game. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, if you look at, like...
Oh, let's all talk at once. Yeah, go on.
If you look at a game like Gears of War, that's essentially everyone just using one gun, but because the game is so basic and it's like such a hardcore community, no one really cares. It's just about who's winning. But with Battlefront, I don't know. I think it could probably do with some more blasters than what they're gonna have in the game. But go on, Fuse.
I was just gonna say, I think with some rebalancing of the pistol blaster, then the simplicity, I think, like Luton was saying, the simplicity and the limited amount of weapons could make it so that actually the skill of the player is what's important, not have you got the best loadout, best new gun, this, that, and the other. Which I think is a more enjoyable experience, because if I'm shit, which I kind of am, but that's against the point, I can look at that and say, well, okay. I
love how nobody jumped in there and was like, no, Fuse.
Yeah,
that's not true.
It was just like, no, you're shit. Get out the squad. No one wants you here. Put your Sonic hat on and run away.
Yeah, go on.
But no, I can choose a different blaster. Does that work? Well, no. Okay, so I need to get better as a player rather than spend 3 weeks trying different guns.
Yeah,
that's true. That's very true.
Like the gameplay is very movement based on how you're moving around the map and like how you're using the rocks and everything, because that is actually quite important to how well you're doing, because yeah, there's only a few blasters, but the way you're moving is going to be more important.
If you get caught out in the open and they get eyes on you, you're just dead. So you've really got
a based game.
Yeah, so you have really got. I mean, there's an objective point to that. There's a very sort of tactical point to that in a way. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: is that sometimes, like you said, was I really thinking about what I was doing? No. But that's because some of the movements you're making are pretty subconscious. I'm not really thinking like I'd better take cover behind this rock. I'm just going, I need to get to there, to there, to there, to there, to there. Just going point to point to point to point to point to point. So it's like you get to one position, maybe there's nothing around you, so you think, right, now I want to go over there. And you immediately look, assess. I mean, this is the thing. When you've been playing games for a long time, a lot of this stuff you don't really even think about. You just do it. So I approach a rock. There's no one here. I look kind of left to right very, very quickly, almost in a sort of peripheral way. I look forward. I think I want to go vaguely in this direction, sort of off to my left. I look forward, I think, okay, there's a rock about there. I jump towards or run towards that rock. Once I get there, I'm like, I want to go here. And all this stuff is happening in fractions of a second. And you don't really think about what you're doing, but it is encouraging you and creating a style of gameplay. And I think that the players where that is not happening will find that they get punished brutally. My question, though, might be, are those players then likely to sort of learn that? And if, you know, where would they learn that from? I don't know. But, I mean, I've already seen some really epically classic mistakes happening in just the rounds we've played, whether it was on drop zone or whether it was on, you've still got the classic 4 to 5 people sitting on top of a hill holding hands. And I mean, Trigger had this happen, like I had this happen, where you just literally walk up to them and they are totally unaware, and you just put your gun to the back of their head and just go bam, 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 and like execute 4 of them in a row, and they're completely unaware of you. And it's probably because they're like zoomed in on their aim down sights, just like trying to find a target, and they're totally, you know, they've got no peripheral awareness whatsoever. But
you know, the Walker assault, though, everyone's saying that that's imbalanced. Do you think that's the case, or it's just more the players and they need to kind of flesh out and learn the map more?
It's right. Let me just. I'm very quick, and then you guys can chime in.
Yeah.
It's a very hard one to say at this point, because I do actually think that other pieces of equipment might help there. I also think there's a large quantity of players who maybe don't get what it is they should be doing. There's an aspect of people understanding the map and knowing like where they need to be, where the good points to hold, all of these kind of things. That is a factor. There's going to be a factor of how many players are playing who have played this kind of game mode before and are just being thrown into it now because there's only 2 game modes available. We have all played Rush endlessly, and we're all very objective players. So the round where we were defending, we won because we were all really pushing hard to like hold that line and really get into them and stop them moving forward, and we were prioritizing targets. And between us and it seemed like some other people on our team were also had a good objective sense, that really helped and it really worked. The team that we were fighting against, rolling back the other way, just didn't happen whatsoever. Just, you know, just destroyed them about 5 times, I think. So what I mean is essentially there's way too many variables to really say. I think that's the only, you can only really know that when it comes out in terms of balance. But all I would say is it is possible to defend right now. The question is, was that because the game mode is balanced, or was it because the people on the other team didn't really have any intention of pushing forward and getting the objective, and we had total intention of defending? I mean, you know.
One other point, you did say that, which I agree with, that everything should be unlocked as well. So obviously, people didn't have their launchers and everything like that. So you know,
this always really drives me mad whenever they do betas. In fact, Hardline was a fantastic example of why it was so stupid that you had to try and level up. So from one point of view, like when you're in a beta, leveling up is a good thing, I suppose, because it enables the developers to see how quick or whatever. But most of the time, these things are sped up anyway because they want people to kind of unlock stuff a bit. But like in the best example I can give is in Hardline, the end level weapons in Hardline really only got looked at once the game was out for the most part, and so nobody had the opportunity to see any trends in the kinds of weapons and kind of loadouts people were using. So for my mind, the beta is supposed to be about simplistic things being fixed, so that can be stuff like weapon balancing. If one weapon is being horrifically overused, maybe there's some cooldowns need improving, etc. Now happily for this beta, they have given a fairly simplistic amount of equipment. So most people are going to be able to unlock that within a fairly few amount of rounds. It really doesn't take a lot to get that stuff. But when they were doing the hardline beta and they gave full access to unlock everything, and all you had to do is progress it, well, if you've given people that option and you have actually given people access to everything, why not just freaking unlock it all? Because if you unlock it all, then people are going to experiment with weapons, experiment with the loadouts, and you get way more of an opportunity to see whether something is totally unbalanced. And then, of course, when that game did come out, we found that there were several weapons which were totally imbalanced, and it just became a nonsense. So you're kind of missing an opportunity to fix that there, in my opinion. But with the Star Wars Battlefront one, I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty sure there are very good reasons, I expect, in terms of just the game's content, why they didn't want to release that stuff. They clearly don't want to showcase everything right now, and I think that's the primary reason why they did it. But I mean, for the sake of unlocking, I suppose there's one thing you could say, which is that over the course of the beta, it does give people a little feeling of what it's going to be like to unlock stuff in the game, and maybe as well that kind of pushes people to do the objectives a little bit more or something along those lines. I don't know. So yeah, there's a couple of different ways you can look at it. But yeah, other guys, we're still talking about Flame Fuse. We're talking about the balance of that game mode, the Walker Assault.
Walker Assault, yeah. I think it is sort of unbalanced because at the end of the day, the Imperials have a much simpler objective than the other team, which means the other team really needs to work much harder to actually be competent. Essentially, they have to be, as you're kind of saying.
Yeah, this is what. Yeah, that's what I said before when we came out of EGX. That's exactly how I felt, which is that it's not impossible, but it's like an optimistic level of team play. You know what I mean?
Yes, definitely. They have to work harder. I think there are maybe some changes DICE can make to make it easier for the other team. Probably be related to sort of pointing out that it's really helpful for the rebels to get on turrets, especially when attacking the vulnerable walkers, because a lot of people are just taking their small arms and just firing at the AT-ATs. I mean, it does some damage, but it's sort of negligible compared to the amount of damage you can do with the turrets. And so if they increase maybe the damage of the turrets, or they make them a little bit hardier, and made it more obvious that people should get on them, that would help. The
turrets seem way too weak right now, and I mean, I feel like they don't want to be too powerful because they don't want people to just sit in them and, just stay there, right? But the laser sort of turrets that are down there, I don't know what name they have, but the turrets that are sort of out in the field, the sort of infantry turrety ones, I suppose, but 2 sniper rounds and they're down. Which is stupid. Like, it's really insane. I mean, I know that weapon is high damage, but it shouldn't. And the same with the ATST. Actually, those sniper rifles are pretty good against the ATST, so they can get some good damage on them there as well. And that thing reloads like a boss. Like, it's just like you fire your sniper rifle and and it's ready to go, and it's ready to go. And again, I wonder whether those cooldowns though have been thrown in there just because of the beta. Will the cooldown be longer? But I mean, right now as well, it's Thermal Detonator City, right?
Yeah, I think they should extend it as well.
It needs to be extended. The Thermal Detonator should have the exact same cooldown maybe as the jump pack. I feel like that's probably a legit amount of time for that thing. It's about the right, because very often once you use the jump pack, you're like, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. That's how it should feel with the Thermal Detonator. Right now, you just don't even think about it. You throw a Thermal Detonator like they're candy all over the place. Why did I say candy? I'm not American. And but you do. You just like, oh, there's a guy. Ping, throw it. Shoot for like 3 seconds. Oh, there's another one. Ping. Like, you just can keep chucking them, and they're really powerful. I mean, I was saying, yeah.
What do you think of the blast radius? Because I've talked to other people about this, and they say that I think that the blast radius is too big, but my friends have said that kind of, it's part of the gameplay. Like, that's how the game plays. Like, you should expect grenades to come, and it's all about the movement and dodging them and everything. But
that's a really bullshit answer. Like, that's a classic kind of answer to this kind of things. Like, it's basically, it's up to the developer. We can't say how it's supposed to be. Did they want it to be like huge like that? We don't know. Maybe. But personally, I don't think there's any real kind of. If you get it bang on like 2 or 3 people, it should kill those 2 or 3 people. But very often, I've had one land near me going beep 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 beep, and I sort of turn to run, and I get like 3 meters away from it, and it's just, it doesn't kill me, but it clips me pretty hard, and I'm like, damn, if that was just like a grenade in a Battlefield game or something, it really, I don't want to compare to Battlefield, but I mean, a thermal detonator is supposed to be super powerful. It's supposed to be a very, very powerful thing. But then, if that's the case, don't give it like a 1 second cooldown or whatever. It's not 1 second, it's like 2 or something, but I don't know.
Or at least make it longer to prime and throw or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes like a little click, you know, so that you actually have to, you're putting yourself at risk by using it. Whereas right now it's literally just like a bing, you just kind of fire it out from the side of you and forget about it, you know. It literally takes a fraction of a second to throw it.
I can compare it to Battlefield in this way, because like when BF4 first came out, everyone's instinct, oh, I've shot this guy, I've got one hit marker, he's gone behind cover, I'm just going to throw an RGO and blow him up.
Yeah,
it's
totally
like, it shouldn't be, a grenade shouldn't be in every encounter you fight with someone. It should be like a thing that you properly think about, if you know what I mean.
Who here has had this experience multiple times where you're running forward, you see an enemy, and almost immediately they don't even, it's almost like an instinct, they don't start to fire. It's like ping, grenade out, and then they run towards you whilst the grenade is going off. Who's had that? Pretty much everyone, right? Yeah. And not like once, right? Like a lot of times. Yeah, it's like it's a Battlefield instinct because of the RGO. It's like there's an enemy, ping, grenade, and then run towards them shooting. So if like the grenade doesn't finish them off, they're weakened and you can just pick them off. Now, arguably, nothing wrong with that tactic, but it's kind of bullshit when it's just the only thing that's happening. And you know, basically that's what we're saying is if they alter the grenade mechanic a little bit, it wouldn't happen every single time you see a person, which has to be said. On Drop Zone anyway, it's very much like that. Of course, on Walker Assault it doesn't happen so much because the distances involved are so much more significant. But
I'd argue even not even having a grenade after you die, or another grenade in one life, I should say. I think one's probably enough.
Yeah, like Battlefield.
One or two, yeah.
One or two, yeah.
I was going to say, actually, whilst we're talking about the thermal detonators, you can, it may be a bug, but you can actually fire the grenade and keep the weapon out at the same time. Now, usually the animation is supposed to put the weapon away, throw the grenade and bring the gun back out, but you can get away with keeping the gun, firing it whilst the grenade is thrown.
I'm sure that's definitely not a bug. I'm sure that's 100% meant.
Yeah, it's so quick to throw it anyway, so that's probably why the bug's there.
But it's like with that, you can fire a grenade, shoot people, and if you die, well, the grenade's going to get them anyway.
What do you think about the Superiority stuff when we were doing Walker Assault? Because basically me and the guys said, let's try and get into TIE fighters or X-Wings and stuff, A-Wings, and just keep air superiority between the three of us. I've got to say, I think when we did do that, we've wrecked them pretty hard, and it really prevented them from laying down any sort of ground attacking, right?
Definitely. And I think you may disagree with me, but I actually think the like using the TIE fighters and that is quite skill based, because at least for the first few hours that I was playing the game, whenever I got in a TIE fighter or an X-Wing, I could not shoot anyone for shit, and I'd just get shot down straight away. But the moment that you actually learn how to use them,
the super OP locking system,
yeah, but like learn just how they move and how to get behind someone, and
it is pretty awkward.
Yeah, and put that with teammates who actually know what they're doing, you can just get things shot down straight away.
Yeah, but it's no Battlefield 4 in terms of like jet piloting skill, is it? Do you know what I mean? It's like
no,
like far away.
You kill infantry with those things on the ground.
Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, but I don't know, I got quite a few kills with it, and I could definitely tell the infantry were annoyed because on the sort of third and fourth passes I was doing on the ground, I was taking quite a lot of fire, like really, every time I flew down there I was having to use my speed boost away because they were really displeased with me shooting them on the ground. They were not happy about that, so that was great fun actually. Oh yeah, one thing that was back with a vengeance is classic vehicle ramming. The thing where people spawn in as a vehicle in the air and are just like, hey, I'm not even going to try and shoot you down, I'm just going to come at you full speed and ram you in the face. I really enjoyed that happening to me quite a few times. So that was
good.
good.
Get the kill for it too.
Yeah, which is insane. It should just be suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of bullshit.
The guy that went like 60 and whatever, what the hell was he even doing?
There was a guy who was like 80 and 4 or something.
Yeah,
It was 88 and 8.
Yeah.
What was he doing?
80-80, like the whole round probably. From what we saw.
I mean, it's
nobody gets that kind of. I mean, he was either sniping or nobody gets like an 88 and 8 kill on that game mode if they're just running around. Like you would have had a freaking sniper sitting back or an 80-80 or something like that. No chance you would have been like just running on the ground infantry.
I mean, the 80-80 thing spawns in the same place, so if you know where it spawns and you're really willing to just sit there and grab it every time.
I thought they were changing that though. That I thought they would. I read that they were making it so that they were very aware of the fact that they don't want people camping it. So the idea was that I think it's not in the beta, because I do remember reading this. Because I remember reading that basically what they're going to do is that you won't know what it is until you pick it up. So it might be like a TIE fighter or an ATST, and the best ones are going to be sort of like hidden. So I think it's either going to be that you only see it as you get near to it, or that it doesn't display at all, and that you only know what it's like a lucky, like lottery or something. You pick it up and then it's like, oh man, I got the AT-AT, I didn't know. So it's going to be like that. But
currently, like in the beta at the minute, you can see the pickups from quite a distance away. So you can see from like 40-50 meters, like, oh, that's an AT-AT, that's a TIE fighter. So at the minute, you know, you go straight for them ones.
Yeah, I see that, like the AT-ATs there, and I'm just like, oh my god, I'm going for that, and I just like jump back straight towards it. So
yeah, and me and Flame are having battles over who can get there first, because we know what it's going to be.
Yeah, that's an ongoing thing. Let's talk a little bit about the weapons. I mean, we haven't seen all the weapons for sure, but right now, this is what always bothers me with weapons in games. I know that so many other people disagree with me about this, but as I've said before, you know, like with Battlefield, I hate saying like this gun is the best, because a lot of the time that's bullshit. There's usually pros and cons to most guns. Having said that, in like Drop Zone, straight away it's like the pistol. When I started playing and I hadn't had anything unlocked, I was getting annihilated, and I was so frustrated. I was like, ugh. Like every time I encountered, there was a guy I started shooting in the back, and he just spins around and just like drops me like that, and I was like, what? Ridiculous, you know, completely ridiculous. But then as soon as you unlock a couple of other guns, you're like, I'm absolutely annihilating now. And when you get that pistol, there's just no question. I mean, what is it, the DL2, the sort of LMG style gun. That's DL19,
something like that.
Yeah, whatever, who cares? I'll make up some name for it later. But like, that gun is, yeah, comparable. But the pistol, to be fair, I think is the one. I mean, it really just wrecks. And I cannot imagine myself ever wanting to use anything else. I mean, Flame is probably the best person to ask, because when we started playing, Flame was like, oh yeah, you're fine with this rifle, right? But then Flame, you switched it up and you were like, oh, actually, the pistol's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's just very determined by the map. Because you know, that pistol isn't particularly good on some of the other maps.
Yeah, but like I said,
only other
but it's like you were saying, like, yeah, it's dependent on the map. In terms of the Drop Zone map right now, it's fairly close quarter-esque, but there's plenty of opportunity where on that map you can engage someone at like 150 meters, 100 meters, sort of long range, and I was finding with the pistol I could still take them out. It shouldn't have that kind of range, should it? I mean, if you're going to have like a fast-firing weapon that does a lot of damage, like an SMG, because that's essentially what it is. It's like an SMG. Keep it close quarters. Don't make it so you can frickin', you know, shoot someone up on a rock high up on a hill and beat them when they've got a slower firing, theoretically, I guess, a bit more powerful gun, you know?
It's absolutely OP. I agree with you. All I'm saying is that it's not necessarily quite as OP on other maps.
Yeah, for sure. Like on the Hoth
one other map.
Yeah.
Still though, like the LMG, I was getting long range kills with that on the Hoth map.
Yes.
You can see visible spread more than obviously the first blaster, but you can still get kills easily at long range.
Yeah.
It overrides the higher damage, lower fire rate kind of complex of the first weapons you use. So
yeah, the rifles. I have no time for them. You know, it's like Hardline all over again for me. It's, you know, there's a couple of guns which are clearly more powerful. Why would you ever go near those other ones? There's just no need. I don't know.
Also, the LMG, I don't think you're impeded in any way, like with, you know, speed or anything. It's just as
there's no weight to it, right?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'd say that the LMG and the pistol one, like you say, if you don't go for anything else. I think for me personally, the high fire rate wins over the slightly higher damage of the pistol, because you can also, the pistol, like, it gets hotter really quick.
Yeah.
So I found that when I'm using the pistol, I just run out of being able to fire before I'm actually able to kill them.
Maybe you should just learn to aim better.
Well, this is, we said earlier, I'm shit at the game, so no one defended me playing.
What do you think about like some of the gadgets? I mean, again, not seen them all, but personal shields.
I think the gadgets have a good kind of individual niche in their own right. I think none of them easily selected over the other. They have different purposes and everything like that. Because obviously, like say the jetpack, that's going to get you around the map, but then the shield's going to make you get objectives. Like obviously, I saw Fuse loads of times planting the pods with the shield up, so you can run away unscathed.
Yeah.
But remember, you can have the shield alongside the jetpack. The shield and the jetpacks are two different. No, they're two different things. The shield is like a consumable, and the jetpack is just a gadget.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So can you have both of those and a grenade as well?
Yeah.
Yes. I think
what are the other things apart from the shield and the jetpack?
Sniper rifle,
ion blaster, ion grenade.
Yeah.
Well, they're all quite. What I'm trying to say is that they're all quite useful. None of them really seem.
Yeah, none of them seem insanely overpowered. But as we've said, I think there's a couple that need a tweak. There's nothing that I would remove, but I think the sniper rifle, for the sake of the fact that we don't really want people just sniping, and right now that sniper rifle, I would happily just, I mean, I even was doing it. I was thinking like, hey, I'm just going to get up on top here and lay down the fire, because it's pretty powerful, and if you're used to sniping in any shape or form, you can pick up the kills. I mean, Flame, you're not a fan of sniping, were you? But
No.
you know, but for myself, I was getting up on top there, I was like picking people off, bam, 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 you know, it's like, it's not a... And also with the game and the way it handles, it is because people tend to stop, start, move. They're not so on the run. It's very, and tracking a target is easy. It's a very powerful tool, and the fact that it reloads so quick and has essentially unlimited ammo makes it super powerful. So I wouldn't remove it, but it definitely needs a cooldown, like a good cooldown. Same with the thermal detonator as well.
I think the cooldown is perhaps the biggest problem, because right now you've got the risk, kind of like with weapons, of people being like, right, these are the best 3 gadgets to bring with me all the time, and then they'll get some combination that they really like. I mean, there's been some people going around where they get the shield, the jetpack, and the cycler rifle.
Yep, that's my exact loadout.
Put on the shield, they shoot the cycler rifle at somebody, and they go up and melee them, because it takes 2 melees to kill people, but if you hit them with a cycler rifle at close range, because you can quickscope with it, you just run up and kill them.
Yeah, it's true.
Does like 90 damage, like wherever you hit them, or obviously it will be a one-shot kill, but
yeah.
I mean, but here's the thing: is that a lot of the time, it is a one-shot kill with that thing, because I was finding I get one shot all the time with that, because there's a lot of sort of incremental damage going on around there. You know, somebody takes one hit from a blaster as they're running across an open ground. It does a little bit of damage to them, but not total. And then you just spy that guy and you're like, bam, and he's dead, because it's one shot. Now, again, you know, it's part of the game, it's fine, but you just don't want to be facing that all of the time. And that gun has got a pretty extreme range. I mean, I think it was... we were on Hoth, we were sort of halfway through toward the end of the round, and I was in the trenches. Me and Trigger actually were on the far side of the trenches, and there was an enemy right up on the rocks on the other side, and all I could see was his head and a little bit of his shoulder, and he tried to shoot at me. I think he had like a rifle or something, and I just quickly went up, looked at him, bam. There's no drop off with it as well. That's the thing. There's no weapon drop off, and there wouldn't be, because it's kind of like those blaster sort of style weapons, but again, as a sniper rifle, that's a pretty good deal. If you have a very powerful weapon which has no drop off, you're just literally aiming the crosshair, bang on him, dead, you know, and I got the kill. So I'm just saying that we're going to start to see a lot more of that as people learn these things, and if they don't adjust those cooldowns, it's going to become a pain in the ass. So
it also remains to be seen how those will do on other maps. I mean, you observe that whatever drop zone is on at the moment, I think it's Celos or something.
Yep.
It's a very close range map, whereas Walker Assault on Hoth tends to vary a bit more. If you get some map that's really open, you're going to see a lot of people using the cycler rifle.
My concern as well is, like I say, that I have already started to see bunches of 4 and 5 people sitting on top of hills, and you know, you throw the sniper in the mix, it's just a pain. But yeah, so I would like to see some change on that. And then the last thing we're going to talk about here was map design a little, because we just on the 2 maps so far. Fuse.
I think that the one that Drop Zone is on is better. I think there's open bits, but they're not too open, and then the closed bits are really closed. It's really close quarters. I know, like us, all play Battlefield 3 sometimes, and we love close quarters action on that.
Yeah, that's true.
I think the Hoth map, it goes from being a bit cramped to just massive, and it's too massive.
Maybe.
I think Hoth could do with some slightly deeper trenches and a few more of them.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a lot of open ground to cover at some points.
Just need more cover there.
Yeah, it's kind of, it feels very much, actually it reminds me very much of, what was it called on Bad Company 2?
Harvest Day?
No, it's one of the winter ones. I think it's called like, literally called Winters something, I think. Well, no, it's White Pass. On White Pass, basically, if you were playing Rush on White Pass on Bad Company 2 and you lost the first base, you had a half a chance. You basically, the first base on Rush on White Pass was your pretty much strongest possibility of holding the game. The second one, you had about a 50-50 chance, and then after that, you had no chance. And this is how it feels on Hoth. If you get past the second bunker, that's it. Once they're in the open, they're screwed. I mean, it's basically down on, if you get past the second line, which is essentially, so what I mean is, you're past the hangar and you're across into the open fields, at that point the rebels are really screwed, because the two AT-ATs are usually up, and they are just reaping everything that they see. So you don't have any of the advantage of the cover and stuff like this, which we found we did have when we were defending. And also you're just kind of under pressure running out of time. But if you can get the speeders up and stuff, and you know, we did see it where they were taking maybe one of our AT-ATs down and we were like, shit, they've got one down. But you know, we still, at that point, we're at the end phase. But anyway, I mean, so that's what I'm saying, is that on this game mode it feels very much like White Pass. The first base was where I think we held it. You know, if you can hold that first line, you're really in business. The second one, once you get into that hangar thing, they're kind of around you a bit more, it's a bit harder, and then past that phase you're just screwed. You've got very little hope unless you can just put enough fire and Y-wings and stuff into them to take them down, but you're really under pressure at that point. That's what I would say about it anyway. So. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say that one sort of concern that I have with the maps is that we might see a little bit of what we've seen in the previous Battlefield games, where you've got some sort of generally well-designed maps, but that are kind of also kind of forgettable. Like if you look at the one on Drop Zone at the moment, it's sort of mostly a pile of rocks. I mean, you know, there is some, there's like a drop ship and there's one or two like crashed ships around. But other than that, I mean, it's not, it may be well-designed, but it's not a very memorable map in a lot of ways. And so I hope they really manage to take that in a different direction with some of the others. I mean, they've done a decent job in Hoth. But if I think back to the original Battlefront games, those had some really memorable, varied maps that were a lot of fun. So I hope we see some more of that with this.
Cool, we'll have to see.
Yep.
Right, has anybody got any sort of okay, actually, let's just do okay, question for each person. Will you pick up the game, and last thought about it, sort of soundbite about it? Fuse?
Oh, don't come to me first.
Yep, no time to think.
Will I buy the game? Eventually. G2A.
Shut up. Get out. Get the fuck out right now.
Hey, it's 20 quid cheaper already.
Shut up. Right, go on then.
Soundbite. Enjoyable for a bit. Quick gamer there and then, but nothing to keep me going for hours.
Flame?
Will I buy it? Originally I would have said no. Now I'll say maybe. Probably after release, kind of like Fuse. My sort of final thought for it is I did come into this beta looking for things to hate, and I've come out with it, you know, from it with a pretty somewhat positive, optimistic opinion, which is good, I suppose.
Cool. Trigger?
Kind of G2A as well at some point. Save that monies. And my kind of final comment, I think it's kind of like the girl you meet at the club. You know, she might be fun for a while, but you might realise down the road that it's not something you want to stick with. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, mate. I'm not even gonna. I don't have a comment to follow from that because I can't possibly. So yeah, Star Wars Battlefront comes out really soon.